Hello my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to our /MaliciousCompliance, where people follow exact orders to spite someone. And in today's episode, we're dealing with smug parents, Karen customers, and one OP teaches a new business owner a lesson he'll never forget. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. Don't shake your heads too hard. And as always, you can send or link your posts to this email right here. Let's dive in. So first of all, this is not my story, and it didn't happen to me. It happened to my neighbor, who we'll call Tom. Tom's a maintenance supervisor at a large hunting/sporting goods store here in Tennessee. His store is quite short-staffed right now, so even though he's the supervisor, he was tasked with cleaning bathrooms tonight before he got off. The store was so busy tonight that he literally had to wait 35 minutes for the women's bathroom to clear out before he could clean and stock it. The women were complaining to his superiors about the bathroom getting dirty and understocked, but they also wouldn't stop pushing past him to use it for that entire 35-minute period. Finally, it was empty, so he enters the restroom and he blocked the door with his cleaning cart, and then got to work wiping off surfaces, cleaning the counters and mirrors, you know the drill. That's when he had noticed that none of the stalls had toilet paper at this point, and he was saving that for last. While he was cleaning, a woman who I'll call Karen starts knocking on the door, demanding he let her use the bathroom. I'll transcribe the conversation as he told me, and keep in mind that apparently the entire conversation, she's tapping her foot impatiently, and she's putting her hand on her hip as if she's a child. Tom basically says, "I'm sorry ma'am, the restroom's closed for cleaning temporarily, but I'll be done here very shortly." Karen says, "Well, I need to go now, so please get out." That's when Tom tells her, "Well ma'am, the restroom is so dirty that it doesn't meet our standards, and I have to restock it. It's currently out of..." The woman then interrupts him and says, "Listen, I don't care about your job. That's not my business. You can worry about your job later. You'll be here all night. I need to use the restroom." Tom tells her, "Ma'am, I just need to grab something real quick and I'll be done in 1 minute." He then steps outside the bathroom to go around the corner to grab the toilet paper from the maintenance closet, located right next to the restrooms. He would have been absent from the bathroom for a grand total of 10 seconds. When he exits the closet, he sees that she's pushing his cart out of the way. She then tells him, "I'm using the bathroom. I'm the customer here, and I'll be done in a minute. Then you can do your job." So instead of informing her that there was no toilet paper, he just leaned against the wall and waited patiently for the reaction. After about 5 minutes or so, he could finally hear the woman timidly calling him, saying, "Excuse me, sir." He barely pushes the door ajar and he says, "Yes, ma'am." She says, "There's no toilet paper here." Tom says, "Yes, ma'am. That's what I've been trying to tell you. That's the only thing left I had to do." Now here's the good part. He ended up walking to the break room to grab a female coworker who was on break to hand a roll of toilet paper to Karen. The woman had to wait 10 minutes on the toilet while the female coworker slowly finished her break and made her way there. He told me the feeling of validation he felt when she left made his entire crappy night better. And there's some karma right there, right? Can't say Karen didn't deserve that. Like, just let people finish talking, for goodness sake. And seriously, I also love how Tom took his sweet time and on purpose walked all the way to the break room to find a female employee to deliver toilet paper to Karen. And this person comments, "Better person than I am. I would have just walked off." So for the last 10 years, I've been working from home as an automation engineer for a relatively small company that produces custom-built industrial gas treatment units, such as industrial chillers, compressor stations, that sort of thing. Now, my job was to write algorithms for PLCs, design HMI, and set up data transfer for customer SCADA systems. And that might sound super complicated, but all you need to know is basically, I was the person who told the machines what to do. I was also getting significant below market pay for such position, but with only 4 to 5 projects per year, and each taking me 2 to 3 weeks to complete, I wasn't arguing, since I was getting paid for mostly doing nothing. Everything was going great until a couple of years ago, when the owner decides to retire and he sold the company. So here comes the new owner and new management with new policies. In my country, every worker is entitled to at least 4 weeks of paid vacation time per year. All unspent vacation is rolled over to next year, but you have to take at least 2 uninterrupted weeks per year. So if you only take your mandatory vacation, you accumulate 14 additional days per year. Now, given how much free time I actually had, I rarely used more than 2 mandatory weeks per year, always making sure that there'd be no commissioning or maintenance plan during my vacation. I also want to note that during these events, I would remotely access maintenance engineers' laptops to make necessary adjustments to the algorithms, so everything works perfectly in real working conditions. But one of the first policies that new management implemented was schedule-based vacations. So now, I had to decide when to take my 2 weeks at the start of each year. I chose the first weeks of April. In early March, I get a call from the manager of the development team, who asked me to come on a quick 3-day work trip to help a maintenance engineer upload a project. Apparently, thanks to the new maintenance team manager, a lot of maintenance engineers quit and they're short-staffed, and the only one they can send at the moment isn't so great at their job. I thought to myself, there isn't much for me to do, so I'll just fly there, hang out until the electrical panel's rewired, the new PLC's installed, and then upload the new project and fly home. But apparently, the maintenance engineer was not only bad with computers, but the guy also knows nothing about electrical work. So I had to do everything myself, which I'm not actually qualified to do. At this point, I don't want to disappoint the client. So after a week, I finished and basically did all the work myself. After returning home from that crap show, I informed my manager that I'm not going on any more business trips since I don't get paid enough to also do this maintenance engineer's work. So with that out of the way, the first day of my vacation comes and I get another call. Despite my poor judgment, I decide to answer. I hear, "Hey, this is an emergency. We need you to go on another business trip. It'll only take a week." Now, I'm not familiar with that project at all. Plus, I'm starting my vacation and everything is planned and paid for. I told the manager this and he says, "Yeah, well, it is what it is. I'll send you the details along with the documentation right away." He then disconnects the call. So I check the received project and it's huge. The project's a total mess, nothing would work, and basically the whole thing would have to be started over from scratch and will probably take me close to a month to finish. So I call back and say, "Yeah, I looked at this project and that's a mess. It's not in the working condition and there's no way to finish it in a week. Besides, I have too many things planned for the next few weeks as I'm on vacation. I can't go." He then says, "Listen, we've already missed all the deadlines on this project. The client's pissed, and we're looking at huge fines. The CEO's breathing down my neck, and we need it fixed yesterday. You have no choice but to do the work. I'll speak with the CEO about this if you don't." About 15 minutes later, I get another call. I hear, "The CEO said if you don't want to go, then you should just write a resignation letter." And that's when I thought to myself, I'm the only employee who knows how to do my job, but yeah, sure, I'll send my resignation letter right away. At this point, I was even thinking about not doing it, so they had to terminate me and pay me termination compensation. But that's when I decided to be petty in a different way. In my country, you had to give at least 2 weeks notice unless both parties agreed to shorter notice. So I write my letter and I set my resignation day as the 14th of April, which is 2 weeks. I then get another call a bit later. I hear, "So, will you be able to finish this project before you leave?" I tell him I won't be able to do any work on that project before I leave. He asked, "Why? You still have 2 weeks and we really need it done." That's when I say to him, well, you see, I'm on vacation right now, and the last day of my vacation will be April 13th, and I'm done on the 14th. And here's the fallout. I recently got a message from an ex-colleague that I have a good relationship with, that apparently they're in deep crap right now. Deadlines were missed, fines rolled in, and the company's accounts have been frozen. They were unable to pay salaries the past 2 months. They're probably toast, and if things continue to go that way, they'll have to file bankruptcy. And don't worry, people will get paid in the end. As in my country, salary debts have the highest priority when a bankrupt business sells their assets. But the downside is, I still haven't received my compensation for my 120 saved vacation days. So yeah, they're pretty much done. You know what, I have read so many posts like this, guys, and I love it so much. The classic I'm irreplaceable move. And I bet the CEO regrets it so hard, telling OP that they should resign if they don't do the work. Like, maybe never tell a worker to do that, and especially never tell a worker who's keeping your company running that. And you gotta love how they underestimated OP, pushed them too hard, and now they're drowning without the one person who held it all together. Like, they deserve the mess they're in. So I thought I'd share something from a few months back. I'm a 33-year-old male, and I often do cooking at home, including the washing up that happens after. My wife, who's 34 years old, does not usually cook. We established that by our second date years ago. And I love her to bits, but she's a culinary disaster, and time and sweat has failed to make improvements. It's a lost battle. Though that said, the sequence of dinner prep usually starts as soon as I finish work. This involves chopping meat, vegetables, and rounding up anything that was previously marinated or thawed. This is immediately followed by cooking and then serving to be eaten hot. It seems logical to me that meals should be enjoyed while they're fresh, and cleaning up can wait, especially if the kitchen's not being used by anyone else in the interim. I'm also the one who normally does the washing after everyone's eaten, and I wash all the cutlery and cooking prep stuff in the same process. This is done while my wife settles our toddler into bed. Now I prefer this setup because I can get all the washing done in one go, and everyone can eat their meals at the same time together while it's still fresh. I don't like washing the pots and pans after cooking and before eating. My wife, however, seems to get annoyed at this. Every now and then, while I'm cooking, she walks in and she'll start complaining, making notes that I should pack this and that up, and that I should clean the board while waiting for the stir-fry to finish. Sometimes, there's literally no downtime for certain dishes, especially with several to serve before it gets too late for the toddler. And just to be clear, I certainly clean some things as I go, especially when it concerns raw meats or things I need to put back in the fridge. I'll wipe down if there's any offensive spills, but for things like chopping boards, empty packages, or condiments, I'll just leave them on the bench top until I'm done, or when I'm washing up. These are things that I don't feel pose risks or have an urgency to be put away, other than making the kitchen look tidy during cooking. I'm happy to be proven wrong. Anyways, one day, for whatever reason, my wife got really snarky and she snapped at me because I left the chopping board out next to the pans, saying it's not hard to clean as I cook. I just thought, whatever, fine. So for the next meal, I made sure to clean everything I touched as I started my meal prep. I had made sure that my little one had her dinner, so there's no harm drawing this out. Need to open a can of sauce, I'd better wash down the can opener and dry it before we start. Gotta wipe down the whole kitchen top too. If I dropped a garlic clove, I'd better give the whole kitchen floor a good scrub. And is that a bit of charred residue on the stove? Better degrease the entire area. You get my drift. By now, my wife's put the little one to sleep. So 3 hours later, the kitchen's sparkling. Literally. The pasta's not entered the water and the sauce materials haven't touched the pan. The wife asked, "Where's dinner?" I tell her I haven't started cooking because I still need to clean the fridge. There were some stains under the tomato tray. My wife just went to bed. I still cooked and packed her lunch, though, and I've not been harassed since. Guys, I'm only chuckling because good on OP for still packing his wife a lunch after all of that. And I'm sure she learned her lesson. But yeah, everyone has their own way of cooking and cleaning, right? Like there's no right or wrong in my opinion, as long as at the end of the day, everyone's fed and the kitchen's tidy when you're off to bed. With that said though, I think we can all agree that if someone's not there to help out, they should maybe keep their opinions to themselves and stay off the other person's turf. Let me know your thoughts on this. This one happened a few years ago when I worked at McDonald's. The one I worked in was near a bunch of schools, so most of the staff was high school kids. As summer vacation started, we began having the trouble of an employee getting on break and then spending their entire break conversing with their friends who were still working in the kitchen. It was having a seriously bad effect on productivity, as well as posing quite a few health risks, so our manager finally initiated this rule that if you were on your break, you couldn't leave the break room until your break was over. This went swimmingly until the kids went back to school. Then we had a new problem. Short staffing during break cycles meant that our ticket times would skyrocket during rushes. The management lifted the rules so that employees on break could clock in early and help with the rush. However, the district manager didn't like the employees working shortened or no break shifts and forcefully reinstates the rule. They also doubled down by saying that employees who tried to work during their scheduled break would be written up and or terminated for doing so. Cue the malicious compliance. So the date was 4/20, a day when nobody wants to be working at any fast food place, much less McDonald's. We had been getting slammed so hard from the open of the store that we called in extra help from other stores. As the break cycle began, management was pleased with the ticket times they managed to maintain. A few breaks through, we were managing well, and then came my break. As soon as I sat down to eat, someone came in the store and they ordered 47 double quarter pounders. And this was right after the Fresh initiative, where all quarter pounders were made fresh, so this was already a minor panic. Immediately after that order, somebody in the drive-thru orders 75 20-piece nugget meals. The amount of panic in the kitchen was palpable. I was comfortably lounging in a chair, browsing my phone, enjoying my meal, while the kitchen struggled to keep up with the orders. As ticket times began to soar, management did exactly as I expected. The district manager comes in the break room and demanded I end my break early and help in the kitchen. My response was very simply, "I'm sorry, but according to the rules that you made, I can be written up or terminated for completing your request." I then continued browsing my phone, trying to enjoy the last 10 minutes of my break. The regional manager enters the room and said that he would personally terminate me if I didn't do the thing I wasn't supposed to do. The other employee who was on break with me immediately rose and clocked in, despite still having 10 minutes on her break. She was written up for breaking the rule after the shift was over, so I felt good sitting in my chair and continuing to ignore them. In the aftermath, the people who made the giant orders took what was made after half an hour, and they left with refunds for the unmade food, nearly $150 each. Customers who were waiting for smaller orders were compensated with gift cards for their patience. Yet many walked out without even getting their orders. We paid out nearly $1,500 in gift cards. Because customers were walking out on orders without collecting them, we had nearly $5,000 in food wastage that night. The regional and the district manager were moved to a different region, and the rule was edited to say that you were able to clock back in early at the manager's discretion in the event of a rush. Because I was the only employee who held his ground during the rush, I was rewarded with free meals and drinks until I moved away from my hometown and couldn't eat McDonald's anymore. Yeah, I gotta say, what a stupid rule that was. And the fact that they asked OP's coworker to help out and then reprimanded her for cutting her break short was freaking ridiculous, wasn't it? That aside, I don't think that even OP helping would have made much of a difference. I just don't know why OP's managers even accepted such a large order. Like, I've worked fast food before, and upsetting one customer for refusing their order is much better than like the 100 customers they upset that day. So I was working at a gas station about 20 years ago. One evening, this lady comes in and she dumps like 5 or 6 handfuls of pennies on the counter, and she states her preferred brand of smokes. Ordinarily, our cashiers would just tell someone to F off if they were trying this. But I was pretty chill at the time, and I had nothing to do but run the register and stuff my face with food from the deli case. So cue the malicious compliance. I just said, okay, but I have to take other customers. I'll count this between. The woman objects and she says, it's all there. I counted it already. I reply, if my drawer comes up wrong, I'll get in trouble. I have to count it. I'm sorry. The woman starts stomping around the store all mad and throwing her arms around. And I start counting meticulously, setting the pennies aside in stacks of 10 and pausing every time a customer comes in. All the while, this lady's acting like she's been stabbed through her hand. Maybe half a dozen customers, and 10 minutes later, I'm nearing the end of the pile, and the woman's standing by the door getting more and more impatient, and she's bitching at everyone who comes through. I was giving the other customers priority, so they didn't care, of course. Anyways, I finished counting, and the woman's short maybe 15 cents. Who could remember? It was fairly common for people to raid the penny dish. The take a penny, leave a penny. To cover the cost of a pack of cigarettes they can't quite afford, and this was generally allowed. But the woman promised me it was all there, and at this point, I was a little bit annoyed. So I take the overflowing free penny dish and I move it behind the counter before calling her over. I tell her, hey, you're about 15 cents short. The woman says, can't I just cover it from the dish? Where is it? I ask, what dish? She says, there's a dish. There's always a dish, but you took it away. I then give her a puzzled look. I wave my hands over the counter telling her, there is no dish. I don't know what you're talking about. The woman's fuming at this and she cusses me out for a while, and I just shrugged it off. The woman left without her cigarettes, of course, and my boss came over afterward and told me I didn't have to count those or even take them. The dude didn't get me at all, but I just played it straight, and I was like, oh, okay. So this happened about 10 years ago now, and I have a good chuckle about it every time I pass the place in my car. I'm a pretty meek guy, so this is probably the only rebellious thing I did in my entire teenage life. So that said, my dad owns a farm, and being his son, this meant I had a job when I was a kid, whether I liked it or not. Mostly, I understood this, but that didn't mean I had to like it. I resented having to spend entire days of summer vacation, dawn to dusk, in a tractor. When it came time to harvest alfalfa, which we did 4 times between the spring and fall. Basically, imagine a teenager with ADHD forced to sit in one place for 14 hours, and you'll understand how it felt. And honestly, if I wasn't a total introvert, I might have snapped sooner. So anyways, it's the second day of harvest, and it's getting to be late in the afternoon. I've spent about 20 hours total in a haybind by this point over the past few days, and I ask my dad which fields to cut next, and I ask him when I'll be done, hoping in vain that I can leave and go play video games or whatever. And this is where that line comes in. He says, I'll pick you up at dark. Little does he know that my little teenage heart is clenching with righteous anger for all this wasted time. So several hours pass, and I'm understandably getting pretty irritable. It starts getting dark, and guess what? No sign of my dad. At the time, it was becoming a bit of a recurring joke in my family how my dad was always late, so I knew I was in for the long haul. And then it occurred to me, and the malicious compliance begins. My dad said he would pick me up at dark, and he wasn't picking me up. So that must mean it wasn't dark yet. And what don't you need if it's not dark outside? That's right, headlights. So I continue going back and forth on this wide, empty field, squinting as the lights continue to fade after sunset, and I stubbornly refuse to turn on the headlights. I can easily see the edges of the field, of course, but everything else is blending in pretty well. I start purposely and accidentally leaving some shark fins, which are what we call the mistakes that haybind operators leave between rows when they don't get any alfalfa. A few small shark fins per field are fine, even expected, but these are on a whole new level. My dad shows up after about 30 minutes of total darkness. I forget our exact conversation, but I do remember the result. After asking me why I didn't turn on the lights and telling him why, he laughed uproariously, and I still remember it fondly to this day. I never did get any punishment. I'm not even sure he understood the extent of the missed alfalfa. It was dark after all, and it was hard to see in the dim moonlight, but whatever, it was just a few rows. I do, however, like to think he was a little proud of me, because I was the type of teenager who never got into mischief. I asked him about it recently, and unfortunately, he has no memory of the incident. Oh well. I, however, will remember this bit of malicious compliance fondly for the rest of my life. It might have been pretty insignificant and motivated by laziness, but it was also the first time that I really stood up for myself against an authority figure. What an absolute wholesome compliance that was. And guys, I think the best part of the whole thing is that Dad was able to laugh at it. That just makes it a nice, wholesome memory for OP. I also want to add that I was expecting something crazy unfortunate to happen in the dark because the internet has ruined me. And this person shares a malicious compliance they pulled on their mom. And it says, growing up, cleaning was always a major issue at home, especially with my mom. Nothing was ever done to her standards, and this led to a lot of fights. One summer day, when I was a teenager, we had a cleaning day, during which my mom told me to clean the bathroom that my sister and I shared, top to bottom. It was my last chore, and I cleaned it, but not thoroughly enough. I was asleep in bed that night when my mom burst in, already in a bad mood I guess, and she flipped my lights on and she starts yelling at me to go clean the bathroom properly. That particular night, I was just too tired and too done with being screamed at, and I said I would do it tomorrow and to let me sleep please. Well, this only made her angrier, and she told me to clean the bathroom now or get out of her house. She was likely bluffing, and it was something she said often, but for once, I felt bold enough to call that bluff. Besides, it was clear that she wasn't gonna let me sleep anytime soon. So I immediately get out of bed, grabbed my backpack, hopped on my bike, and left. My mom yelled at me the whole way out the door. I biked to my best friend's house, whose mom was more than happy to let me stay over. Now, there wasn't any super satisfying conclusion to this little rebellion. I just stayed at my friend's house for 2 days, hanging out and going to the park while still in my pajamas. And immediately after that, I was already set to go on a week-long volunteer trip in a different state. My mom didn't text me or otherwise say a word, and when I finally returned home, she pretty much pretended like nothing happened. But that felt triumphant enough for me because I knew there was no way that she'd ever apologize or say that she'd overreacted. However, she never played the obey me or get out card ever again. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of r / malicious compliance. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's an r / entitled People episode, where psycho Karens are getting their lives ruined, guys. Go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.